talk about the psychology behind losses and trying to make a comeback. Lucci, how you doing?
I'd be doing better if we weren't talking about this fucking topic.
Yeah, this is definitely a topic that hits home for both of us. Today is obviously my 1 year anniversary of the 100K loss, but let's get right into it. So obviously losses are common, but what I want to know is where do you feel that they affect you the most?
Um, you're talking about psychologically, or are you
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about like?
So is it your confidence, your timing? Obviously, you're a very aggressive trader in nature. So where do you think it really hits home for you?
I mean, let's face it. The mind is right. Your thoughts are commingled all the time.
Right.
So one bad thought will trickle into the rest of them, and you'll kind of get a cascade effect, right? So let's say you get affected most through the confidence, then the confidence is going to indirectly hit your timing because then you're going to be gun shy, right? The next time you take a trade or something, and then it might affect your aggressiveness too, because if your confidence is shot, you might not be as aggressive. And then mood, let's face it, like confidence will of course affect your mood, right? It's like getting turned down by. It's like having a bad day. It's like every woman you talk to one day, you just get turned down. You have one of
Yeah,
those days, right? Like you
yeah.
go on a, you go on a slow period, and then, you don't even want to talk to the next one. You're just looking at her like, ah, fuck this girl, man. Forget about her. I'm not even gonna ask her, man. You know what I mean? So I would say it's kind of like a cascade effect. For me though, it mostly affects, I would say, I would say interaction with those around you. And by the way, like Greg has listed off a couple of these things. I would say that one definitely, like if I'm losing, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to
Yeah.
anybody. I don't want to talk to my mother, especially women, because they just want to know shit. They just need to know shit. I can't do it. I can't do it.
But do
So
they even understand?
no, and of course, and the problem that we often take is trying to make people understand. Like that's
Right.
an uphill battle anyway, and that's a place that's just going to give you more frustration, more frustration, and more frustration. So I would say they don't affect my confidence really. My confidence. I take a loser. I really don't give a shit. It's always a matter of time before I come back. Um, I would say it affects my aggressiveness and maybe my timing, the way I see the tape. Maybe I might be a little step behind or something like that. But yeah, I would say it affects my aggressiveness because I get more like if I take some losers, I get more aggressive. Like naturally, I get more
Yeah.
aggressive. You know.
All right. So
So
for those of you who don't know, Anand and I are pretty much in contact at all times throughout the day. Obviously, he's in Boston now, and I'm here in the office in the city. So I get to see pretty much all sides of Anand while he's trading. But what I've always wondered is, what do you think is worse, the little losers and a bunch of them, or the big lump over the head?
they affect you differently. They affect you differently. Like when you take a bunch of little losers. If you keep coming back to the market, then, the only reason you're taking a bunch of little losers is because the environment has changed, and chances are your strategy just doesn't work for that particular environment. But you keep plugging away at that strategy. And then it gets really frustrating, and you're just sitting there, you're like, well, what the hell happened? Can I even make money anymore? So that can be dangerous. But then, like the big losers, where you fuck up, like where you literally made a mistake and like you knew where you should have gotten out, you didn't get out, and then you take that loser, that shit hurts. That shit really hurts because it could have been easily prevented. You could have made it a small loss, and you wouldn't be sitting in the hole that you've just dug for yourself. So that shit definitely hurts, and that's happened to me. That happened to me. I think like end of June, like beginning of July. It was some pretty nasty ones.
So then, do you almost compartmentalize within yourself those two categories? Obviously, the little ones are more acceptable for you versus the big one where you just kind of chalk it up as like, shit, I got beat here.
Um, Yeah, actually, so if it's a big one where I'm just like I got beat, then it'll affect my mental state a lot more than the little ones. If I'm burning a couple thousand here and there, like it doesn't affect me at all, But whereas if I take like a $200,000 loser, that shit, it'll take me a day to get over it, but mentally it might affect me for like a couple of weeks.
Well, is that a response to the dollars involved or the mental capital that you're
The
kind of
mental
putting
cap,
up
it's more
front?
the mental capital. It's always the mental capital. It's a
Right.
great question, and that's a huge difference, for anybody that's watching. And mental capital as far as trading capital, especially for guys with aggressive strategies, this is completely different. It's two completely different things. And you can spend a lot of mental capital on something, and it might affect you even more than taking $100,000 loss because in reality the mental capital is literally worth more to you than that $100,000 loss. It's kind of weird to say that, but oftentimes like that is the case. Like if I spend all this mental capital and all these small losers to find a breakout on a stock and put in all this work to figure it out, and then I miss the trade, like that shit hurts me more so than even sometimes losing $200,000.
Right.
Because if I spent all the time to sit there and wait for that trade and I didn't get that trade, then I'm a punk. Like I'm a punk. You know what I'm saying? Then I'm not doing my job. And if I'm not doing my job, then what the fuck am I doing? So, those things affect me a lot more than, the little losers or even $100,000 loss. Like, as far as the dollar amount, to me, I don't care. I could lose 200,000. It doesn't matter. As long as I'm still in the game, I'm making that 200 back and a million back and whatever. It doesn't matter.
All right. So
Takes
so
a
to come
while though to get there. It takes a while to get there.
right.
It took me years to get there because I started out taking losers, $10 losers. You know what I mean? $10, $20 losers. Like that was my biggest losing day. It was a $50 losing day, and that shit hurt. You know what I mean? So now you're in a situation where you're taking $100,000 swings and stuff like that. So it's a completely different world, but you just get used to it. You get used to it over time.
But but is it all relative? I mean, obviously, to get back to kind of your start where you were taking 50, $100 losers, we'll say, versus now having a bigger account and let's say taking a $100,000 loser. What do you think affected you more? I mean, back when you didn't have the account and you were taking what seemed to be big losses, or now that
Yeah,
you have the big account?
that's a good point. That's a good point. When I first started out, the dollar amount would affect me. Why? Because I only had a significant amount to work with. You know what I mean? So for
Right.
people who have small accounts, that dollar amount is going to hurt you too. So definitely you got to be cognizant of that as well. Folks with larger accounts, you got a lot more leeway. And I know you and I were talking about that, as the difference between trading a small account and a big account. So yeah, absolutely. Dollar amounts, you got to get over them, but it's all going to come to you though, no matter what you're doing, as you're sort of progressing. So if you do have a small account, then you're going to worry about the dollar losses. That's going to cut down on the types of trades you take, when you take these trades, and all that. But then when you increase your account size, you're going to try to trade a little bit differently, to account for that change in account size. So, so it's all relative, and it's all like part of the game. It's all part of the little adjustments that you have to make as you continue throughout your trading career.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I mean, to kind of stay with the smaller losses, because obviously, like I said, I get to watch pretty much what you're doing on a daily basis, and to be completely honest, the big losses are kind of few and far between. But you do take some smaller losses and quite I'd say quite consistently when things aren't going right as far as the market. So
Yeah.
things like now. But what do you feel like you change? I mean, obviously we've talked about your position sizes, but I
hmm
mean that's kind of normal stuff. Are you a superstitious person? Do you believe in that stuff? Do you have a ritual, stuff like that? I mean, me, I do. I do the same thing every morning when I'm trading, but
I don't even
you
want to
know,
hear. Actually, you know what? For the purposes of this, what is this? What is it? Just so we know, put it out on the table, son. What is it?
I eat the same thing every day when I'm trading. Taylor ham, egg,
So,
and cheese from the same deli.
hmm
I wake up, I set my alarm at the same time. I make
hmm
sure I get the same train. I eat the same dinner. It's stupid stuff like that, but it all resulted from one day of having like a big day. You know
Yeah,
what I
I
mean?
mean, a lot of people out again, like you think of it as a practice, right? Or you think of yourself as an athlete, or you think of yourself
Yeah.
as somebody who has to perform highly, right? So you have to put in the work. You got to practice. You got to do this and that. I did all those things, by the way, when I was starting out. When I was starting out, I did all those things. So I got to the office at a certain time.
So what?
I made sure that my diet was on point, and
Right.
I went to the gym after trading every single day just to take an hour away from my from the mental aspect of it. So absolutely, I did that for a while, and then I finally hit this point where I was just like, you know what, I can lean on it a little bit. I'm kind of good right now, so I don't really have to do all this shit. But as soon as you take a ramp of losers, you
Right.
somehow find yourself back to the basics, right? Just like athletes, just like anybody else who has to do this kind of shit, you go back to the basics. You start just practicing your ones and twos, just to get it back, and then once you got it back, you're in full swing. It's just a question of being able to do that, being able to come back and do that.
So then what do you fall back on? I mean, come on. I
What do you mean?
remember back when we were at the loft. Every morning I'd have to go out and get you that spinach green drink.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah. No, I mean that was a kick that I was on. I mean,
Oh, right.
that was just a kick that I was on, and I was for lack of other choices. You know what I'm saying? Like when for example, like if I'm taking a lot of losers, like I don't leave my desk. I don't leave my desk. I don't leave to do anything. I don't talk to anyone.
Yeah.
I don't do any of that kind of stuff. And that's bad. These are the kind of bad habits you might develop when you're on a losing streak, where you're irritable to the people around you, you're not taking care of anything else besides trading. So your mind is 100% focused on trading and to get back these losers, and you're not going to even the grocery store just to make yourself dinner, or you're not going to the gym, or you're not responding to your friend's text, little shit like that. So when you get into a losing streak, that's how I get. That's how I
Right.
get.
All right. So then obviously, I mean, we have some pretty advanced traders
Yeah.
that are with us over at Sangalucci.com and
Hmm.
some more novice guys. But what would you suggest for the novice guys when they start taking a bunch of losers
Yeah.
and obviously a couple of them in a row? What would your advice to them be?
Yeah, I would say immediately size down. Immediately size down. Realizing you're in that streak and realizing what type of environment you're in is key to making a rational decision, an unbiased decision. The problem is you're not going to make an unbiased decision when you're in the thick of it. That's the issue that most traders have, including myself. During certain times. You're so biased or you're so adamant on working this shit back, you don't do anything until it's too late. So I would say, if you're taking a lot more losers than usual, then something is not right. It's whether the environment, it's either the trading environment is not providing those opportunities that you usually make money on, or your mentality is just not right. It's one of those two things. Either way, you got to chill out, and sometimes the best thing that you can do is just take a step away. Take a step away from the market. I would always say, and we've had other webinars of folks who have learned from me and who have sat in my class, focus on other things. There's other things to life than fucking trading, and if you can peace out and do those things and go on a date with your girlfriend or hang out with your boys, you know what I mean, like whatever the case is, like that shit takes your mind off of it. I mean, it proves to you that your life is still there, you know what I'm saying, you're not dead,
Right.
and you don't have to sit there on the fucking keys all day, working at something that it just ain't gonna happen right now because your mentality is not in the right place or the environment is not there. Easier said than done, of course, but the better that you get at identifying these places, the better you'll sort of be at stepping away.
Absolutely. And I mean, kind of the way this flows now is obviously you take a bunch of losses in a row and then you either take some time off or you focus on other aspects of your life, like you said, your boys, your girl, whatever the case may be. But at some point, you got to get back on the horse. I mean, that's the game. That's the
Right,
nature of what we do
right.
as traders and all of that.
You got to get
So,
back on it. You got to get back on it. I mean, these things are going to happen. Like taking a drawdown or taking losses, these things are going to happen. So you're going to have to experience these kinds of periods, and always you got to come back and get on that horse. So yeah.
so then what do you personally? I mean, obviously, when I took my 100K beatdown, I took 2 months off, and then I started out really, really slow,
Yeah.
managing accounts for my friends and
Yeah.
family and stuff like that. But
Right.
when you come back after some time off or a slowdown period, if you will,
Yeah.
what do you do differently?
Well, when I differently than what got me into the situation, or differently
Yeah.
than,
I mean, how do you change? I mean, if it wasn't working, say, a month ago, do you
yeah.
approach it differently, or do you kind of let the market
Well,
dictate
my
what you
situation
do?
was always that there's always something working, and there's always some kind of trade that's working. The question is have you adjusted to it and have you realized it? Most people don't until it's a little bit too late. Sometimes I
Right.
do it well, other times I do it poorly. So for me, it's always the the amount of confidence that I have in the back of my head. I mean, it will always pull me. It'll always pull me through these situations. Why? Because I've been here before. I know
Right.
what it feels like. So after I'm done wallowing in my shit for a couple of days, I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's get back on this. Let's figure it out. Now, there's a difference though, depending on whose money you're trading, right? If I was trading my
Yeah.
own money, then I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Whatever happens, like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. So if I'm down 500 grand, fine. I wallow in my shit for a little bit and I come right back. Now, if you're trading somebody else's money, you got some other problems here. You do have some other problems that you might have to work through. And you might have to handle a little bit differently. So you might have to adjust your strategy completely. You might have to do a lot of other things to make those folks that you are trading their money for a little bit more comfortable in what you're doing. That means, a lot more conversations, a lot more than just, okay, I'm going to just hop back on the horse and start trading. So as far as me, as far as what I do to get back, it's always kind of just punting around with some small size, watching the markets and doing nothing, just kind of watching them play out. Spending time away from the markets is always good, which is what I'm doing right now. And then when you're ready to come back, you're ready to come back, man. That's it. But I can only say that because I've been here. I've been here in these situations. I mean, if we sit here and talk about those situations where it's my first time, let's say, and that
Newbies.
happened. Yeah, and that happened when I was a newbie, and let's say I think I made like 30 grand maybe in 1 month, and then I thought I was the king, right? I thought I was going to make 30 grand every single month, and I thought, boom, I'm good. The
Yeah.
next month and the month after that, I think I lost like $45,000, and I didn't know what to do. I thought I was going to quit. I was going to quit. I was going to be done with it and everything. And I just kind of sat there, played some PlayStation for like a week in a row.
So then,
Probably didn't shave for like a couple of weeks, and then
if
came back
if
to it.
if you could have approached it differently as a newbie or novice, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
what would you have done differently looking back? I mean, obviously now you have all the experience and the knowledge, but
Mhm.
back then, what do you wish somebody would have told you?
Yeah, that's a great. I honestly wish somebody told me that it was all about the psychology. Like, I wish somebody was there to tell me, like, hey, listen, it's extremely easy to come up with winning trades. Like, that's not
Yeah.
that's not going to be your problem. Your problem is always going to be your own psyche and how that psyche forces you to do X, Y, and Z that maybe your instinct is telling you, you're fucking wrong, completely wrong, or what you're reading is completely wrong. But for some reason, because of the pressures that you have in the back of your head, maybe to make back a loss or for whatever the case is, you're still gonna make some of these bad decisions. So I think a bigger focus on that in the beginning, I think would have helped me tremendously where I am right now. I think it would have helped my bottom line completely to where I am now. But you can't think like that. The game is the game, and you got to deal with the cards that you're dealt with. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I'm here now. So the question is, what are we doing?
Right. So then you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier about forcing yourself to get into positions and forcing trades
Yeah.
when there might not be one there.
Right.
But me personally, when I do that, I don't realize it until after the fact. But
Of
how do
course.
you recognize when you're trying to force yourself into a position or to force yourself
Well,
to
I mean,
trade?
I think instinctually everybody does. I think
Hmm.
I think instinctually you do. Like something clicks in your head and
Yeah,
you're like, This is a dumb trade." But
yeah,
then after you're in it and you don't get out at, let's say, an exit that you know you should take because instinctually you're watching what you're watching and you're like, "Yeah, I should take this right now," and then you don't. And then, like, in your mind, you've already accepted the pressures and the bias and you forcing the trade. So you're basically going to go wherever it takes you until it gets so nasty that
yeah,
your mind wasn't just ready for it. So once you hit that point, that's the only point that you'll actually act on it. And usually that point is a loss that's way beyond what you expected. You
right.
know what I mean? So as far as forcing trades, like you guys, everybody recognizes it pretty quickly, and the question is, can you follow those instincts? Can you stop the sort of pressures that are coming in from the outside world or the bias that you've created for yourself and that you just can't get over? It's difficult. It's very difficult. But it's all about understanding your own how your brain works. So that's the only way that I can answer that question, and it's going to be a different answer for everybody. So for some people, they might be motivated by money. For other people, they might be motivated by winning or losing. For other people, they might be motivated by buying a house in 6 months because of some goals that they might have. So you got to go inside, like you got to journey inward, man. You remember Batman Begins?
No.
When he had to breathe in the smoke from the flowers, he's
Oh,
like,
yes.
now
Okay.
we journey inward here, because he had to fight the fears that it was his fault that his parents were dead and shit. So it's a journey inward. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is. So I would say for anybody who is trading and finds themselves forcing a lot of trades during environments where their strategy is not working, realize it quick. You already know how to realize it because it's instinctual, but actually do something about it. But again, that trigger is going to be different for everybody.
Right. I mean, so obviously, like you said, it's different for all of us, me personally, but I'm assuming you just saw the comment there. But what do you do when you're just coming back?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I'll cut down my size. I'll try to focus on just a couple names. You know what I mean? And then I'll focus on just taking it one day at a time. And just trying to book a positive day, a couple positive days, and that'll give you the confidence back to size up a little bit. And before you know it, you'll be back to normal. It'll be back to normal in a couple of weeks.
All right. So at this point, I do notice we have a couple questions here, so I'd like to take the time to answer them before we finish up.
Sure.
For those of you who have questions that haven't submitted them yet, be sure to send those in, and we'll try and answer them while we're still here. But Steve Longoria said he's noticed himself taking more losses in the summer and especially in the afternoon. Do you think it's best if you're trading in the summer market to just cut down on position size and tighten targets and stops so you can stay in the game, remain sharp for September, and when things obviously get back to normal, obviously
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the time when the institutions get back.
There's something to be said. There's something to be said about not being in the market, right? Like there's something to be said about not being in the market both ways, right? So let's say you have a shitty you have a shitty environment where you shouldn't be trading, right? So you take yourself out of trading. When you come back to trading, well, you're still going to have a little bit of a learning curve here. You still got to get back into the mix, right? Because you haven't been involved for the past week or for the past month. So therefore, taking yourself out of the game completely, can be difficult. Why? Because when that juice rolls around, you want to be part of it. There's also something to be said though about the fact that the market is 8 hours every single day. There's always something happening. So you're not going to miss, even if you do miss a couple of trades, who cares? Who really cares? So to Steven's point, that's more about you. That's more about your personality. So let's say if you have the personality where let's say you have access to the market, are you going to be able to hold yourself to minimal size? You know what I'm saying? And if you can't do that, well, then your answer is right there. You know what I'm saying? So if you're telling yourself during the summer, I can't do shit, then I got to cut down size, and you're trading 1 lots or 10 lots, can you hold yourself to that? You know, can you actually hold yourself to that? Me personally, I can't. If I have the access, I'm gonna fucking trade. I am going to trade. I'm gonna put a trade on. Like that's it. You know. But at the end of the day, in the back of my head, I know it's the summer months, and I know there's shit liquidity, and you know, this just range trading back and forth all day. You know, sometimes I might get biased and end up in a situation where I don't want to be in. So it's give and take here, Stephen. It depends on who you are. It depends on how you trade. It depends on how you know you are able to just sit there and not do anything. But Stephen, to further that point, I would say that you know, as far as the summer markets go, in the afternoons, like, dude, you're in the summertime in the afternoon, bro. You know what I mean? There's no worse time to trade than anything. You know, so as far as an actual move that you can make money off of, you know, during the summertime in the afternoon, like, you know, your percentages are shit, a complete shit. So, you know, in the overall big picture of things, why would you put all that volume and size to it? You'd only do that because you're biased, you're trying to force trades, you're trying to make back a loss, and all these dumb reasons, you know, that you want to, you know, put on that kind of size and make money. So, you know,
I mean,
I would say tighten up, yeah, tighten up your position size and everything. Stay in the game, but if that means just watching and not trading versus having the ability to throw out size, even though you know there's nothing behind it, just because you want to trade something and you're addicted and you're a fucking junkie, you know, that's two different things. You know what I mean, Steven? So you got to figure out who you are in that sort of window.
I think the other part of it is kind of understanding the names that you're trading. I mean, one of the biggest things that I've learned from you, obviously in the boot camp and now since I've been at Lucci.com, is you trade a very select group of stocks.
Yeah.
And obviously the options for them.
Right.
But if you expand from there, I mean, obviously you're going to find names that are moving. I mean, we talked about the ADRs, Baidu and Yoku, in our last webinar. So that sector is kind of moving a little bit, whereas you get the more range-bound action out of Yahoo or not Yahoo, excuse me, Google, Netflix,
right.
and Apple.
Right.
I mean, obviously Apple's having a pretty strong couple of days ever since
right.
the upgrades, but still.
No, but these things, yeah, have been horrible range trades, you know, and you know, to further your point here, Greg, is that if I was trading right now, and let's say if I was trading excessive size, like I would have been knee deep in Google calls looking for a breakout to God knows where, you know what I mean? And then possibly being stuck on the other side when when there was no follow through on the tape. And if you're biased about that situation, like, what do you think you're going to do? You think you're going to sell for a small loss? You're not going to do that. You're going to sell for a shitty loss because you can't dump that bias.
Right. I mean, that's what beat me last summer. I mean, that's what took my account away. Right. I mean, the back and forth action killed me, but it obviously I learned and now I know I got to kind of sit back and relax during the summer. Obviously, I've been busy, but that's kind of a blessing in disguise, I guess.
Definitely, and you got to find the names that are trading well. You know, you got to find the names that are trading without the influence from the indexes. There's always money on the table. You know, the question is, can you stay unbiased? You know, can you flow towards that money? Can you adapt to the market environment? You know, if your psyche and your bias and all the things that you want to accomplish are trumping what you're seeing as far as environment, then no matter what, you're going to make shitty decisions. You're going to make shitty decisions, and that's going to put you into a little losing streak or a little tailspin that you have to work twice as hard to get out. So I say with trading in general, it's better to foresee these situations. It's better to anticipate these situations and try to stop them before they come, because when they come, you know, your emotions are going to be flying. Your emotions are going to be flying, and all you're going to do is accentuate or exaggerate, you know, those emotions. And put yourself in a real shitty situation that you might not be able to get out of. You know, let's face it, a lot of you guys have smaller accounts here. You know, a couple G's, $5,000, $10,000. You know, you can't afford an 80%, 90% drawdown here on your account. I mean, I've done it, Greg's done it, you know, and we've came back from it. But, you know, let's be real here. You know, it's tough to do that. It's tough to come back after that, you know. So if you're in a situation where you're constrained from your capital, then you have to be aware of that situation. So for anybody out here with small accounts, and by the way, let us know if we're hitting it on the head here, guys. I mean, I don't see a lot of comments from you, but how many of you guys are trading with smaller accounts here, and have let's say blown out your accounts at least once or twice? I'm assuming there's a couple of you out here. We're over here putting our junk on the table. You might as well put it out there too.
I mean,
It's a tough thing.
I think the most important thing I've ever heard you say, and this obviously came from a webinar you did about a year and a half ago, was something along the lines of the markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay liquid.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
it's definitely during the summer all about
Right.
kind of controlling yourself and keeping yourself in the game, like you said,
That's
to
all you
make it
gotta
to
do.
that September, October when things kind of normalize a little bit.
Yeah, all you have to do is stay alive, guys. In reality, if you're a day trader, especially in the options world, all you have to do is stay alive. That's really all you have to do. Preserve your capital until until those trades come out, the ones that you're set up to profit on, 10 times the amount or whatever the case it is. All you have to do is stay alive until that comes around. And it seems like an easy task, but that is the hardest part of this game, and that's why most people don't make it. They don't make it through the mental ups and downs, and they can't handle sort of the the emotional roller coaster that is trading.
Absolutely. So I guess that's all we have time for today. Not a lot of questions today, obviously, but we'll be back on Thursday, part 3, so be sure to tune in for that, and we'll see you guys around.
All right, take care, guys.